Hello, everybody. Welcome back to No Trailers Allowed, my movie and streaming show podcast where I do not watch trailers beforehand. I'm your host, Jersh. If you enjoy this podcast, you can find more episodes on my website, superjersh.com. You can support me and get this podcast early and ad-free by visiting patreon.com/superjersh. You can watch the video version of this podcast on youtube.com/superjersh. To follow me on social media, I'm on Twitter and Instagram at superjersh. To email me and be a part of the show with your questions, comments, or suggestions, my email address is notrailersallowed@gmail.com. I want to give a quick Patreon shout out to executive producers Mirrors, Triss, and I Love Manatees. Thank you for your support. And Patreon legendary producers Albinian, thank you for your support as well. On this episode, I'm going to review The Batman. Now, as this is a brand new movie that just came out, I'm going to do a spoiler-free discussion at the top, and then I will talk spoilers after the fact. If you're new around here, I'm very spoiler-averse. There will be a spoiler warning in the timestamps of the show notes. I will audibly say a spoiler warning, and if you're watching the video version, I will put a visual warning that the spoilers are about to start as well. So the whole premise of my podcast is that I don't watch trailers beforehand, but this movie started getting teased so long ago, a couple of years ago, that I actually saw the teaser trailer before I stopped watching movie trailers. So I saw the first teaser with the Nirvana song. It was like a 60 to 80 second teaser, and that's it. I haven't seen anything else since. The subsequent trailers that they released, I have avoided all footage. When the trailer played at the Matrix, I looked down, had it covered my had an earbud in, whatever. So all I knew was that, I don't even want to say what I knew because this is the spoiler-free version. The movie stars Robert Pattinson, Jeffrey Wright, and Zoe Kravitz, and is directed by Matt Reeves. Let me talk about my history of Batman as well. I've seen all of the mainstream film Batmans, and I loved Batman growing up. The Michael Keaton, the Tim Burton Michael Keaton era that started it all, transitioning to Val Kilmer and George Clooney, the Christian Bale trilogy with Christopher Nolan, Ben Affleck as Batman. I've seen them all, and what do I think about those Batmans before we get to Robert Pattinson? I really like a lot of those Batmans for a lot of different reasons. I think the Christopher Nolan trilogy is probably the most cohesive and consistent for Batman. I think probably Batman Returns is maybe my favorite just because it has this like really dark comedy angle, and it's still kind of comic booky before this commitment to realism, and but it still felt kind of believable in a way. So that's probably just because I saw it when I was young and have a special attachment to it. Probably Batman Returns. Also the Danny Elfman score I could listen to on its own. The music really works for me. Val Kilmer was fine. George Clooney was George Clooney. He's not really, for my money, he was not really Batman. He was just George Clooney as Batman. He had his George Clooney mannerisms, his cadence. He wasn't really taking over a new character. It was just George Clooney. I actually liked Ben Affleck as Batman as much as I've been disappointed with the DC Universe movies and how they've handled DC characters as of late. I actually liked him as Batman. I liked the voice changer, the equipment and gear to fight Superman, and the kind of the older rage filled kind of different take. I liked all that. For this movie, I did not like this movie. I did not like the Batman. I will say briefly in the spoiler free section why, without giving anything away. The things that I did enjoy were I think Colin Farrell is my favorite part of the movie. I think that he's very unrecognizable. He again, no spoilers. He was my favorite part of the movie. I liked his performance, and I liked kind of his attitude. It didn't really fit well with everything else going on in the movie. It kind of felt like it was in a different movie. But I was the most interested in the movie when there were some scenes involving his character. I also thought Jeffrey Wright was honestly like all of the actors with the material they were given and the tone that was set and the plot that was chosen for this movie, they did what they could. Like this, my dislike for this movie is none of the actors' fault. I feel like they were given very specific direction that they all followed. So I didn't mind Pattinson as Batman. I've only seen a couple of the Twilight movies to this point, and those reactions are on my Patreon. The I did like Pattinson in The Lighthouse, and I liked him in Good Time. I don't have any ill will against him as an actor, just because when he was young and up and coming, he got a paycheck and did some teen romance movies. Like, good for you. We could all want that, you know. So him being cast as Batman is not why this movie didn't work for me. Um, so I will say a few things why this movie didn't work for me without giving anything away. Um, I just was I was bored. It's a boring, slow movie. There's a central mystery to the movie, which I'm not going to talk about in this section, that they spend a long time trying to solve, and it is a snail crawling in molasses on the back of an injured turtle. Like, if you've seen 30 seconds of the movie, you've seen the movie. Like, it is that everything involved in, like, if you've seen any footage from the trailer, it's just that copy and pasted for 3 hours. Like, slow walk, slow zoom, mumble talk, who knows? It's dark and gray, and there's a, you know, generic psychopath on the other line, cackling and doing the same thing we've seen a million times before, almost to the point of self-parody. Um, I didn't think there was a lot of character development. I felt like a lot of the movie was like one note, and that one note was stretched out a very long time, to the point where I just was like completely. I think I looked at the clock like 4 times throughout this movie. Um, yeah, I thought the character development was, unfortunately, for the most part, non-existent. The plot was a trudge. The action sequences were like very pedestrian. Like, any action sequence you've seen in any other Batman or any other action film probably outdoes anything in this movie, in my opinion. Um, there's like 2 camera angles that I liked throughout the entire movie that stuck with me, but from a cinematography perspective, it didn't do anything in particularly memorable or unique for me. And I'm not just talking about against other Batmans. I'm just talking about as a movie. Again, the only footage, the only awareness that I had for this movie was the teaser. The movie spoke for itself to me and revealed what it wanted to be to me. I think probably the opening 10 to 15 minutes is probably my favorite part of the movie, because the ideas, the concept of this version of Batman and the tone of this world and what they were trying to set up um, wasn't rehashed by that point. I was like, okay, this is interesting. I wonder what they're going to do with this. And then it's not. It's just this for 3 hours. Like, this movie is totally did not need to be this long. It probably would have been a better movie at a shorter runtime, because things are repeated so much. And speaking of, one note repetition, the musical score did not really work for me at all. The main theme that you hear throughout the movie, which they may have played it in a trailer, I don't know, but it's literally just 2 musical notes back and forth over and over. And this is like a big budget $200 million movie. I think of like all of the great film scores, not just Danny Elfman and the beautiful Batman scores that he's written in his career, but your John Williams, your Jurassic Parks, your Back to the Futures, your Alan Silvestri for Back to the Future, no, John Williams for Jurassic Park and Star Wars, Alan Silvestri for your Back to the Future and your Avengers movies. Like, the score in Avengers is like more memorable than this. And also, it's literally one note away from being a Star Wars theme. Like, there's a theme in Star Wars that is 3 notes, and this one is 2 of them. And I won't get into it here. Maybe at the spoiler section, I'll demonstrate it on guitar. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, so like the character plot, action, just none of it. I just was bored and didn't care. And the central mystery as it gets resolved, I just, yeah. Which is a bummer because, again, I grew up loving Batman, and I found good in basically, all the Batmans that have existed. I just didn't. Nothing about this movie I'm going to remember. I have no desire to ever watch it again. And if there's a sequel, I don't give a shit. Like, I will, maybe I'll catch it for free if it hits HBO Max, but even then it's not a guarantee because I have no confidence that it will be worth the time. Did you know that if you support me on patreon.com/superjersh, you can get this podcast early and ad-free? You probably didn't know that because you're listening to this promotion right now. Which means you also probably didn't know that there are dozens of hours of Patreon exclusive content over there, like full album music reactions and full movie watch-along commentaries. So head on over to patreon.com/superjersh to help the music and movie discussions continue. And for you gamers out there, don't forget to check out my gaming-focused YouTube channel, youtube.com/jershplays. Recently, I've been focusing on Guild Wars 2, Overwatch, and Fortnite, but there are also dozens of hours of gameplay videos for single-player games like Detroit Become Human and the Resident Evil series. Subscribe to that channel ASAP. It's free and helps a lot. Speaking of free, if Patreon isn't your thing, make sure you are liking the posts, commenting, sharing, rating, and reviewing, and subscribing everywhere that you can if you enjoy anything that I produce, music, movie, or gaming related. The only way it can continue is with your help. If this is all too much to remember and you want to see the different types of content I'm producing all in one place, just visit my website, superjersh.com. Okay, that is the end of the spoiler-free discussion. I'm going to talk about some spoilers in this movie. This is not like a spoiler cast where I go over every detail. These are just my thoughts. I don't have like a team of people that I'm going to bounce ideas off of. I'm just going to say a few things that are a little bit more spoiler specific to better articulate why the movie didn't work for me. So, full spoiler warning. If you have not seen The Batman and you don't want anything else spoiled for you, watch the movie if you hate your life and then come back and listen to this. So let me get a little bit more specific. The characters. All of the fucking characters in this movie talk the same. It's all whispered, mumbled bullshit. There's not an ounce of range. By the time 2.5 hours into the movie, when Robert Pattinson finally fucking screams when he's not in the same club that they visit 12 times, like, I'm just like, you lost me, dude. I don't even know why you're shouting. Like, what is the mystery? I didn't even talk about Paul Dano. I didn't talk about Paul Dano in the spoiler-free version because what a joke. What a terrible villain. A fucking Zodiac ripoff. Like, this movie wants to be Zodiac and it's not even close. Like, I think the writers of the movie thought that there's this interesting progression that occurs with every riddle that Batman gets, that like more and more is being uncovered, but it isn't. Like, one corrupt cop saying, smuggling drugs here, and another corrupt cop hitting a woman here, and another corrupt cop embezzling here, is all just, we have dirty cops in Gotham. And when have we ever fucking not? You know what I mean? Like, of course we do. And so every time, it's like every like murder scene, mystery scene was the same cadence over and over and over. Slow motion walk in. That guy's here. He's with me. Okay, what do we got? Well, we got this and this, and now we got a letter. Okay, now rinse and repeat that for the next hour and 20 minutes. And then, yeah, so the characters, yeah, they whisper all the time unless they're trying to, yeah, even in the club, again, there's almost like no variety of locations. It's just like, it's dark alleys and the Penguins Club. And then a speech at the end with the flood, with some water. Yeah, what is the plot? The plot of the movie is uh, the Riddler wants to expose corrupt police officers, and Thomas Wayne wasn't as clean as you thought. And that takes 3 hours to tell that story. There just wasn't there was not progression. Like what's a really good example? What do I mean by progression? Jurassic Park, Zodiac. Let's talk about Zodiac. You know, where that movie starts and where that movie ends, there's a progression. There is a what am I trying to say? An escalation of tension and change in the characters, with Mark Ruffalo's character not getting any sleep, and Jake Gyllenhaal ruining his relationship with his wife, and Robert Downey Jr. Going off the deep end in drugs and alcohol, and almost getting himself killed in a back alley. Like, there is progress in character and plot, and again, it's based on a true story. But if you're going to do a fictional version of Zodiac, I mean, Seven is a fictional version of Zodiac, and it happened. David Fincher made that movie before Zodiac, and again, that's the fictional version, and things escalate and continue, and there's character development and things like that. And it's not 3 hours; it's 2 hours. So even if it is similar, it's more. There's a word I'm looking for. I can't think of it. It's more economical with the time, with the time, the runtime of the movie, and your time as a viewing audience. And I have no problem watching a long movie, but you have to justify the runtime, and this movie just didn't. Yeah, all the characters talking the same, you know, not developing or changing or anything, really was like a disappointment. Yeah, the music, I'm not gonna get the guitar out, but it was is it Darth Vader's theme? The dun 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 dun. The music in this is just that without the higher pitch. It's just dun, 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 over and over and over and over. And I just was over it by the third time I heard it. And they play it like 30 times in this movie. The Batmobile. I didn't talk about the Batmobile because I don't know if they had released that there even was a Batmobile in this movie in the trailers. The Batmobile was a joke. It was just a car. Like, I hope they're happy with their quest for realism, because they made Batman boring and they gave him a car and a motorcycle. Like, how boring, how much more boring does it get for Batman? Like, at least with Christopher Nolan, it was grounded in realism, but he remembered it was Batman, and there was supposed to be some exhilaration and some thrill and some excitement and some memorable action. Like, the truck flip in The Dark Knight is 10 times more memorable than anything that happens in this movie in either of the two action set pieces. Like, there's a few fist fights, and then there's the car chase and the flood at the end, and they just weren't very compelling for me. The car chase was boring. Like, you're shooting in IMAX. You have the whatever budget you want from Warner Brothers to use the Batman property. You're shooting in IMAX, and I can't see shit because everything is an extreme close-up on Penguin's face, on Batman's face. Even when the Batmobile's in frame, it fills the frame top to bottom. You have no idea of, like, sense of scale or spatial relationship between him and Penguin. Like, everything is so tight shot that, like, you can't see anything or appreciate the scope, because there wasn't a scope. They were just driving on a highway. And then there was an explosion. And even when the semis flip and roll, I thought, okay, here's going to be the big moment. We're going to get like a wide shot. We're going to see 4 semis rolling. We've never seen that before. You think it's cool to flip one truck? Watch this. I'm going to fucking donut roll 4 semis at once. Get ready. And it's just, nope. It's like an extreme close up on the door of the semi, flip, and then there's an explosion. Like, you couldn't even see or appreciate it. Like, and again, like, the one I said, there were like 2 camera angles that I liked. The one was the attached camera to Joker's car when he spins and comes to a stop, and it sees the fire behind him. I thought that was pretty clever and inventive and fun. And then the ending shot of the movie with Batman and Catwoman riding, it looked like it was dawn, like there was finally brightness in the movie, because and again, I get the tone, I understand the tone. What I'm saying is that tone was repetitive and boring. It just was. The opening 10 minutes of Halloween and masks and a variety of criminals, and I'm trying to keep track of everybody all at once. Like, I was like, wow, I think I'm going to like this. And it just doesn't go there or stay there. unfortunately. Um, but yeah, the action sequences, like when he base jumped using the wingsuit and did that attached, like from 15 years ago, the it's like I think they did it in Ricky Bobby with Will Ferrell, that self-attached POV selfie camera. I just like laughed. It just kind of looked silly. It didn't look or feel badass like Batman. It just looked silly. Um, and yeah, and the big action sequence at the end, like saying Gotham is flooding is a terrifying thought, and I thought here we go, and then it's like it's ankle deep. The town's flooded all the way up to here. Like yes, that is a logistical and insurance nightmare, but in the terms of like life or death, Batman needs to save everybody. It was fine. um, yeah, Batman and Catwoman, their relationship felt so forced, and it only existed because of your prior knowledge of those characters. Like, oh, this is Batman and Catwoman. There's supposed to be tension. There's supposed to be romance. The the history of the characters states that we have to do this. Nothing in the movie earned that type of relationship. I don't think. Some of the most fun in the movie is earlier on when they're using the camera contact lenses and trying to do an investigation together. I thought that was fun, but I was sad that that wasn't paid off. That this really clever tech idea never really came back in service of like the finale. It just was like something. I thought it was a missed opportunity to have a great setup and payoff using the camera eye later. Um, what else do I want to say? Yeah, I didn't like the Batmobile. Didn't like the action. Didn't The characters were very one note and repetitive throughout the whole way. The one exception is like Zoe Kravitz, Selena Kyle. I thought that finding out that Falcone was her dad and seeing her go from this like kind of quiet club person to badass Catwoman to vengeance seeking murderer willing to kill Falcone, and like seeing the rage kind of overtake her, like she had the type of development you would want to see in Batman, in a movie called The Batman. And I'm not saying that her development should have been taken away. I liked it. I think other characters deserved the development. And they basically tried to shorthand development with Batman with his end of movie voiceover. I see now that it's not just fear. No, you fucking don't. For 3 hours straight, it was just all fear. There was nothing learned throughout the or progression or growth throughout the story. The same slowly walking around, whispering, muttering that you do in the opening scene of the movie is the same thing you're doing at the end of the movie. And um, I get it that like characters are characters and you have to be consistent if you want to be a character. And if that's the character choice or the director choice, then that's fine. I'm just saying, as a viewer, it's the least interesting version of Batman to me. Why do you not want to? And they clearly made a choice to get away from the dual life of the superhero, because the one thing that I was kind of excited about early on in the movie is there was not a lot of time as him as Bruce Wayne. There was like a lot of Batman in this movie, in the bat suit, in Batman mode. There's like two or three times he's out of the costume in the whole movie, which when you say that out loud, like, holy fucking shit, that's awesome. The problem is, when he's in the costume, he's just standing around. We're just standing here. And I get it. He's the world's greatest detective, allegedly, and so there needs to be detection, and I appreciate that they attempted to do that. I just don't think they quite succeeded to make it compelling and interesting all the way through. I think it was a well-worn, like literally one crime scene and one letter was really all we needed to see. We literally could have been a montage. Another corrupt murder, another Batman letter, another corrupt murder, another Batman letter, and it's escalating, and Batman's got to, who knows, work out, or while he's trying to solve middling crimes, the Riddler is uh, rising in the background, right? The middlers and the Riddlers, okay? Um, like a really good example of a montage that I think would have worked is like the montage in Looper, when all the loops are getting closed, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt is in a montage of his day to day. Like I really felt like that cutting the runtime would have done a lot of favors for this movie, and I wouldn't have been so sour on it. Yeah, Paul Dano's Riddler is like just a lame Zodiac / Joker ripoff of You complete me. I couldn't have done this without your help. Like, how many times? How many times do we have to hear that? Yeah. And I do not give a shit about the character that Riddler talks to at Arkham at the end of the movie, which I won't even say here, even though we're in spoiler mode, because what a what a joke. uh, Zero interest in seeing that version of a character. Like, congratulations. Like, and again, like the Riddler, what was his costume? Muddy duct tape. How memorable. And yeah, clearly the movie didn't work for me. Hopefully, in the spoiler free section and in the spoiler section, I articulated in different ways, from the character perspective, from the plot perspective, from the music perspective, from the action set piece perspective, all of these things. Like, I'm not just sitting here saying, "Oh, that's dumb." I go into movies wanting to like movies. They start at, "Let's go. You've got my attention. I don't want, I have no idea what this movie's going to be about because I didn't watch your trailer." But yeah, just nothing about it really worked for me. I liked the closing shots of seeing Batman and Catwoman ride on the motorcycles, in like through the cemetery. I thought that was fun, and the attached camera, I thought that on the Penguin's car was fun. And Colin Farrell, he was like the only character in the movie besides maybe Selena Kyle that had any range or variety of emotions. So maybe that's why I liked him so much. It's because he was serious, he was funny, he was angry. He actually had, a variety of tones and moments. And for that reason, it is more consistent and realistic as a human being. Like, I don't need a movie to be grounded in reality. I just need to believe in the world of the movie, right? Like, I'm not a very big Marvel fan. There's plenty of Marvel movies that I haven't watched. I'm only getting to some of them recently because I'm looking for more movies to watch lately. And yeah, I don't know. There's probably going to be a lot of talk about like Marvel versus DC, and it's like the same old rehashed DC's for grown-ups. It's serious. Go watch kiddie movies like Marvel. Like, say what you want, man, but the Marvel movies, and again, let's talk about stakes since I'm talking about Marvel movies. Marvel movies historically don't tend to have a lot of stakes because the world state doesn't really change a lot until you get like a big Avengers moment. But what were the stakes of this movie? I don't know. You know what I mean? Just the Riddler killing people was what was at stake. Like, and then yes, by the end, in the fifth act of the movie at 2 hours and 40 minutes, then there's like another thing. Like, not only am I killing the individual cops, I want to flood the city. Like, yeah. So it's unfortunate that I didn't like the movie because I do historically like Batman. I would watch every other single Batman movie over this one. I'll probably never watch this one again. That is going to do it for this episode of No Trailers Allowed. Agree with me, disagree with me, that's fine. I just asked to be respectful. I tried not to be too disrespectful in my thoughts. If you have thoughts on this movie, please email me notrailersallowed@gmail.com. If you enjoyed this podcast and want to find more episodes, you can visit my website, superjersh.com. If you want to support me and get this podcast early and ad-free, you can visit me on patreon.com/superjersh. You can watch the video version of this podcast on my YouTube, which is youtube.com/superjersh. You can follow me on social media on Twitter and Instagram @superjersh. Thank you once again, Patreon executive producers Mirrors, Triss, and I Love Manatees. And thank you, legendary Patreon producer Zelbinian. If you are listening to this on Patreon or watching on YouTube, don't forget, it's also available on Spotify and iTunes. So give us a rating, review, subscribe there. Anything that you can do to help grow the channel and grow the show, I would really appreciate it. The internet is a very crowded place. As always, thank you for watching or listening. Until next time.